Welcome to Stolpe Stories. This week features a recorded essay on Swedish artist Anna Cassel. She was a painter born in 1860 and died in 1937. Until now, she has been primarily known as a friend and supporter of fellow artist Hilma of Klint. But as it happens, new discoveries show that it was not quite as simple as that. In the new book, Anna Cassel, The Saga of the Rose, published by bokförlaget Stolpe, it's revealed that Anna Cassel was not a mere assistant nor a passive onlooker to Hilma of Klint. In fact, she was an important co-creator of some of the most famous of Hilma of Klint's early abstract paintings. The essay you're going to hear is written by historian Hedvig Martin and is a summary of her research on this important moment in the history of early abstract art. Read by Ashleigh Cheadle.
Who created the paintings for the temple? The Swedish artist Hilma af Klint, 1862 to 1944, has received enormous publicity in recent years for her large, non-figurative paintings with strikingly innovative shapes and colours. They were created when modern art was still in its formative stages, yet they remained largely unknown for almost 80 years after the artist's death. Af Klint, who was trained as a painter in the classical style, abandoned her conventional career in 1906 when she received a call from the spirit world to communicate a higher message through painting. This mission resulted in her most renowned work, The Paintings for the Temple, 1906 to 1915, comprising 193 paintings in 14 series that she imagined would be presented in a spiral-shaped temple. Influenced by the occult ideas of her time, af Klint continued to create spiritual works for the rest of her life and left behind more than 1,000 paintings and 26,000 pages of notes that reflect both her ideas and artistic ambitions. Although af Klint is considered one of the most important artistic discoveries in the last century, knowledge about the production of her paintings is still limited. Such is the case with the sequence The Paintings for the Temple, which new research suggests did not derive from the efforts of a single artist, but was rather the product of a collaboration between af Klint and her friends. After leaving the spiritualist group The Five, comprising af Klint and 4 women who met for séances between 1897 and 1907, she surrounded herself with a new group of friends. They contacted spirits, formed romantic relationships with each other, travelled, lived and worked together, and often collaborated in the creation of paintings. This had been the case from the beginning of the mission, since af Klint was not alone in accepting the request from the spirit world to execute the paintings for the temple. Nor was she with the Five at the time, as it is sometimes claimed, but instead with her longtime friend from the Swedish Royal Academy of Fine Arts, Anna Cassel, 1860 to 1937. They developed the idea of a mission, which resulted in over 120 sketches produced between October 1906 and September 1907, a collaboration that became the first series of The Paintings for the Temple, Primordial Chaos. The Friends' understanding of this project was different from its presentation today. The idea of executing a large cyclical work in multiple series of paintings was never mentioned. The focus was instead on creating images from the Akashic records, a notion derived from the esoteric movement of theosophy that became popular in the 19th century. The records were described as an information bank and conceptualized as an astral book that clairvoyants could access to learn about humanity's distant spiritual history. The idea had been introduced by the founder of the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky, who described supernatural documents of all that was, that is, and that will be, which she summarized in her dramatic style, comprising the memory of God. In line with this idea, af Klint and Cassel imagined they had access to the entire course of human existence, which had interested them for a long time before taking the shape of paintings. As early as 1900, Cassel was notified by the spirits to try to read supernatural documents, while af Klint, in hindsight, describes how she and her friends at this time tried to research the Akashic records and create things, possibly automatic drawings. 6 years later, this would be transformed into a mission of painting, and although the group had the entire span of existence to choose from, they decided to focus on the beginning of time, the story of your ancient creation, as the spirits described it. These primordial paintings would develop into primordial chaos. However, its title was created much later. Klint and Cassel called the paintings Series 1 or the first 26 small ones, even in the index that Klint compiled at the end of her life. Although it is unfortunate that a fabricated title was introduced into Klint's legacy, the name was chosen with care since the term primordial chaos comes from theosophy and describes the turbulent beginning of time. In 26 small oil paintings created between 1906 and 1907, Klint and Cassel depict how the world was born during a prehistoric storm and developed its original forms of shells, plants, geometric shapes, ethereal waves, and mystical signs. The series was executed in sketches that the friends then selected to become paintings, thereby drawing and painting alternately. However, it is difficult to describe their method in any more detail, since Klint's notes are very limited, largely omitting descriptions of their workdays, techniques, and experiences. Instead, the focus is on the spiritual messages that were conveyed. While this means that information regarding who created which painting is limited, it still provides enough insight to understand how the work was distributed. By examining two paintings that were created by Klint and Cassel respectively, paintings number 2 and number 10, we can retrieve information that is otherwise lacking. Painting number 2, showing the development of the seed of life during storm and lightning, was created by Klint from a drawing by Cassel. Although the motif is interesting from a religious perspective, it is the execution of the painting that is relevant here. The motif has been created in a dry style with expressive brushstrokes giving little attention to detail, and paint applied so thinly that the canvas shines through in several places. The difference between the artists is clear when comparing painting number 2 to painting number 10, which was executed by Cassel from one of her sketches with the instruction to paint in such a way that she tried to imagine the colour. The motif of a storm has been abandoned for a non-figurative image of the world's original shapes and letters, presented in a blue and yellow diagram. The painting is detailed, with the paint carefully applied, and the end result is a smooth surface saturated with colour. It is evident that the friends' styles were opposites, and since this difference in technique is often visible throughout the series, it is possible to suggest who created the other paintings as well. This division proposes that Klint created 12 of the paintings in primordial chaos, including the first 7, and Cassel 14 paintings towards the middle and end of the series. Although Klint began to apply paint more generously in her later paintings, her style remained expressive, at times bordering on sloppy. Cassel, on the other hand, kept to a smooth, thick, and careful application of paint, suggesting that she executed the more well-known paintings in the series, such as number 15 of sperms fertilizing an egg and number 16 of ether waves. Although this division cannot be proven with complete certainty, and some paintings are certainly more difficult to classify than others, it serves as an indication of how the work was divided between the two friends. As such, the first series of The Paintings for the Temple was clearly a collaboration between Klint and Cassel, working side by side on their mission to create images from the dawn of time. This collaboration continued briefly when Cassel, on January 19th, just 2 days after the friends had completed Primordial Chaos, created the first painting in the following Eros series, receiving, as she experienced, instructions regarding both the choice of colour and the size of the canvas. This first painting again testifies to Cassel's style of soft brushstrokes in a blue-green palette, and it was only later in the autumn when Klint continued with Eros that the series became dominated by pink tones, and she broke away from her previous expressive style. The difference in colour reflects a change between the friends, who would soon end their collaboration. From Klint's notes, it seems that Cassel found it difficult to surrender to the spirits they believed were guiding them. She was repeatedly told to silence her mind, to receive their instructions, and warned, if you are not strong enough, you will not get the rich harvest of work that Hilma, would get. When Cassel failed to hear any messages, the whole project seemed to have collapsed for her. Although there is certainly more to the story than Klint's notes reveal, the result was that the friends ceased working together for a time, and once Cassel rejoined Klint, her role was smaller than it was when creating Primordial Chaos. Despite Cassel's absence, Klint did not continue alone, but was accompanied by other women. One was Gustin Andersson, 1862 to 1936. A friend from the island of Adelso, where Klint had her family home. She was involved in the creation of the 10 largest, and according to Klint, they stood side by side to begin the first painting of the series. We held each other's hands and promised to begin with the greatest humility. This collaboration is evident in the motif of 2 wreaths of flowers, one of roses and the other of lilies, flowers that they often used as symbols for each other. Furthermore, Klint worked on the Evolution series, together with her friend Inga Johander, Gustin Andersson, Anna Cassel, and a woman named Helena Westmark in the preliminary phase of the large US paintings. Another important collaborator was Cornelia Cederberg from the 5, who had created most of the drawings during the group's séances. Although she had studied at the Handicraft School, now Konstfack University of Arts, Crafts and Design, like Klint and Cassel, she was not a trained artist but had enrolled in the general program to become a seamstress. This did not prevent her from painting, and she contributed to the creation of the Eros series, the 8th painting of the large figure paintings, the 10 largest, and watercolours that were preparatory works for the US series. The description of her involvement is often very general, with Klint's notes revealing that Cederberg was chosen to help me with the writing and with painting according to my instructions, as regarding the 10 largest. This limited information about the work is a common situation with Klint's notes, which only contribute very superficial knowledge of external events. The fact that Klint mixes both original notes and later comments from when she edited the material further complicates matters, and attempts to reconstruct events must therefore be cautious. This problem is evident in the case of the 17 preparatory paintings for the US series that were partly created by Cederberg. From the notebooks, it seems that the initial plan was that Cederberg would create the entire series, but that Klint, for some reason, took over the work. That Cederberg began the work is confirmed by Klint's comment about the first painting, which she created the template for, and Cornelia, executed, suggesting that Klint either made a preliminary drawing which Cederberg copied, or that Klint sketched directly on paper that Cederberg then coloured. These preparatory works show some interesting differences in style and subject matter that could be related to Cederberg's participation. The first 7 paintings repeat the same geometric flower, painted with an abundant amount of water mixed in the paint, possibly the result of Cederberg's hand. The last 10 paintings show variation in the motif and are generally painted with more visible brushstrokes and uneven colour saturation, perhaps created by Klint alone. However, the reasons for these variations are less obvious than with Primordial Chaos, and the lack of clear information means attribution of the works must be taken with a pinch of salt. The only thing evident is that Cederberg created the first painting in the series, while details of when she ended her participation with Klint remain shrouded in mystery. In her notebooks, Hilma af Klint was open about the fact that several women participated in creating the paintings for the temple. And although she presented Cassel as an equal partner, and Cederberg, Andersson, and the other women more as assistants, their participation stands independent from any internal hierarchy. It is unfortunate that af Klint left behind only limited information about her work, largely because she edited and destroyed significant portions of her notes. But one day, material from the other women may surface to provide further insight into how the paintings were conceived. Until then, we must abandon the idea of the paintings for the temple as the creation of one single artist and acknowledge that other women contributed to af Klint's work and vision as well. Hedvig Martin, October 2022.
You've listened to an essay on Anna Cassel, written by historian Hedvig Martin in the book Anna Cassel, The Saga of the Rose. To get 20% off your purchase of the book, use promo code STOLPE20 at bokus.com.